Hey, hi, you guys. It's really great to be here. Yeah, you're building something really lovely here. Yes, I am a therapist. I spent some years in college ministry, so some bona fides there. We'll get started here with the first slide. Yes, formed in relationship, healed in relationship. I want to start with a little story. Yesterday, my daughter sent me a reel, and it was hilarious and also heartbreaking. And maybe you've seen it. It's a young woman walks into, it's a Gen Z new tea place, and it's not to slam Gen Z at all, at all. But she goes into the tea place and she says, "Can I get a matcha?" And the woman at the counter is completely still face, and she says, "Mm-hmm." I said, and the young woman is smiling, a little lively, a little bounce in her step, and her face kind of drops, but she's trying, and she says, "Well, what kind of milks do you have?" And she says, our milks are on the side, but it's just still face. So it was meant to be funny, and there is something funny about it, but really the feeling it left me with was a lot of distress. Like, we need attunement and engagement. And if we just get a still face, there's something in us, something in our spirit that feels sort of crushed. And that, to me, just illustrates so beautifully the whole idea of the importance of attachment and connection and relationship, and how we are sources of healing in each other's lives. Where are we here? We can go ahead. So the premise is that we're shaped in our earliest relationships. So our ways of knowing what relationships are really is shaped in our early years. Are relationships safe and secure? Am I loved? Will you be there for me? All of those, we get all those messages at a really, really early age. And I just want you to think for a minute about, we can go ahead. Think for a minute about a time when your reaction felt uncharacteristic or felt a little overdone. Maybe it was more intense or bigger, or even colder than you would expect. It just sort of felt like, what is happening to me right now? And a lot of that can be as a result of our attachment. We're kind of transported back to a really young age when something impacts us like that. So we can go ahead. Wired to bond. So we are, like Annie said beautifully, we're wired to bond with other people. We're wired to be in relationship, to be attached to one another. And when that attachment is ruptured, or we have what we call attachment wounds, that can play out in our everyday lives. That can play out with siblings, it can play out certainly with partners, with friends, with the person you run into at the grocery store. I mean, our attachment style sort of underlies everything. And I want to do a little caveat to say this is a attachment theory. It's not the Bible. It's an idea. It's a construct, a way of understanding people, or a way more like understanding ourselves, understanding the people in our life. But it's nuanced and subtle, and it's not something, I don't believe in categorizing people, but it's a helpful tool to understand sometimes like why we do what we do and why the people in our lives do what they do. And that provides a lot of grace when I understand that you might be operating out of your attachment wounds, and that like just gives me a lot of space to understand. We have so much here, so I'm kind of making these like game time decisions about where to go. But I think also one thing I want to, one thing I want to address is this is very much a cultural thing, and I want to address men, that the idea of needing can be seen as weakness, and we think, well, a mature person, you grow up and you leave the nest and you should be very independent and not be needy, be there for others, but not be needy yourself, which is not what we see illustrated in Scripture. We see interdependent communities and people in Scripture, and it takes a lot of courage and bravery to start to explore what is going on in your interior world and to be able to risk to let other people see that. So we have these, so I'm going to start just getting into attachment theory. So we have these just innate drives from the second we're born. We're looking for safety and security. We're looking for our needs to be met. And we figure out at a really young age what is the best strategy for that to happen. So it's in a way brilliant, because even infants are figuring out how to be in the world and what relationships mean. But oftentimes those strategies that we learn as children don't serve us that well as adults. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different attachment styles. I'll just give you a little bit of a introduction to some of the people that were instrumental in creating this theory. But John Bowlby was a big psychologist who just started learning how infants operate and the different personalities he would see emerge. And a woman named Mary Main also was really instrumental in that. And the two core questions, we're good here. I'm not doing a great job of signaling my person over here about the slides. But the two core questions that I really want to sink in are, am I lovable and worth responding to? Are the people I depend on reliable and safe? And that's what we're all looking for. We want to feel safe. We want a secure base. That's just what, as humans, what we need. But oftentimes, at an early age, we learn that it's not always secure. It's not always safe. And this becomes our lens. So how we are interpreting relationships, our filter for how we see relationships, how we interact with other people. So I'm getting a little lost in my outline here. I think of the scripture, Paul in Romans 7:15, the scripture about I do the very thing that I don't want to do. I'm paraphrasing, but it's not, we have responsibility and there is sin, but also so much of what happens for us is our template. It's like what we've been taught. So there are times I will have this reaction that it just feels like it comes out of nowhere, and I realize, I feel like I'm about 10 or 11 years old right now. And it's helpful for me to see that, to understand that about myself, because then I can have a lot of grace with myself, and I can also have the insight to go, okay, this might be something I need to work on healing. So I'm going to just go over 4 attachment styles with you right now, and you can just kind of think about what you might identify with, if any of them resonate for you at all. So the first attachment style would be secure. So that's what we all hope for, and that's where we hope to get to as we mature and heal, would be secure attachment. So that means that's the person that is comfortable being by themselves. They're happy to be by themselves, but they also are happy to be around other people. Like, I'm good with me, I'm good with we. It's a very settled way of being, a confident way of being, because it's not that every relationship in your life is going to feel safe and secure, but you have a few people or a community where you do feel safe and secure. So this is usually a person will feel safe and secure when they've had parenting or early caregivers, whoever they are in their life, that provided that consistency and attunement. So they're the person that looks you in the eye and tells you they love you, and that they will be there for you, and that your needs are met. And this isn't going to be perfect by any means, of course not, but it's good enough. And I'm going to get to that idea just in a second here. So that would be secure. And in terms of your relationship with God, that is where prayer feels accessible. God feels accessible. You aren't operating from a place of fear. You're comfortable with God. God is a secure base. God is where you go to find that safe haven. Anxious attachment, which, that's the one that I am always working on, and I have experienced so much healing. It's really powerful. I'm testimony. But it's there, and I will still operate out of that sometimes. Usually the parenting around this is very inconsistent. Sometimes a parent is very attuned and loving, and at other times they're distant and withdrawn. So what you learn with the anxious attachment is that you have to be on it. You have to read the room. You're always scanning, and this is going to be a person who is insightful and compassionate. I mean, in some ways we love people with anxious attachment in our life because they are so tuned in. But it's not a healthy way to engage, because you're so consumed with that anxiety of, am I loved? What do I need to do to be loved? And how can I meet all your needs and sort of disregard my own? Because if I let you know my needs, you might get frustrated with me. You might be disappointed in me. So I'm going to just be so finely tuned. My radar is just on it. The next, and as far as with your relationship with God, this is where you just live with a lot of anxiety around your relationship with God. Does God love me? Is God a secure base? What do I need to do to please God? So, you'll see just a lot of perfectionism, a lot of striving, and not that, it's hard to have that ability to really rest in God as a parent. Avoidant attachment style is this is where you avoid, surprise, very uncomfortable with conflict, can be uncomfortable with people, generally not. It's really hard and painful to risk vulnerability. You've learned that relationships aren't safe. The parenting was often unavailable, maybe a distance or detachment. So what you learn is that people really aren't reliable, and that it is not going to do me a lot of good to pursue or to engage. So I will avoid conflict, it's just less painful. You learn it's less painful to avoid. So you can, operate in that way. It doesn't mean, so circling back to anxious attachment, I mean, you can feel the pain in that. You can feel what it's like to worry every day. Am I loved? Am I lovable? Will people be there for me? But I want to emphasize that in avoidant attachment, the pain can be just as acute, because we all have that longing inside of us, that longing to feel connected and attached. So with avoidant, oftentimes a person might look like they don't really care. They just seem distant. But the pain is there, the pain of not connecting. Spiritually avoiding, sort of maybe a sort of a distant relationship with God, a tacit acknowledgement of God and a desire, but there can be sort of a do I want to risk? Do I want to really invest? Because I'm not positive that God will be there to meet me where I am. So we can move on here. Yes, here we go. Old wounds show up in new places. So this is where we're going to see our relationships really impacted. So this is where someone will look at us, say something, do something, and we are transported back to being 7, 8, whatever age. I grew up with a wonderful but fairly critical father. Love him so much. I mean, he's passed, but yeah, just amazing man. But critical. So I am carrying that with me. I've healed a lot, but every now and then I'll be working on a project and my husband will say, would you want to do it this way? That seems like, and my 7-year-old is just, oh, so you think I can't do this? You think I'm doing it wrong? And he's like, no, I'm just saying, you might want to think about it. But that's one of those responses that is coming directly from my early years. It is not on him most of the time. Well, sometimes, but not most of the time. So we have a template that is created in Psychobabble. It's called an internal working model. But I like to use like template, or I think of it sort of as the factory settings that are installed really early in life. And it's what we go to, especially in any kind of distress. We go to our factory settings. So working on our attachment style, what we're hoping to do is change those and update those, because those old messages are no longer true for us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each attachment style really quickly, and I'm going to use the example of texting. So secure attachment is like, I texted my friend, and they'll get back to me, and if they don't, it's all good. They're just really busy. Anxious attachment style would be, I send my friend, spouse, family member a text, and I am just like, come on. And then I'm going back through our text thread, and I'm going, I must have done or said something. Did I say something really dumb, or did I say something hurtful? And then I'm going over and over and perseverating in my head about our relationship. And I must have done something or not done something. And it can just drive you sort of mad. and then they text you, and their battery died on their phone, and you're just like, oh, okay, now I feel good. Everything's good until the next time, which always happens. For an avoidant, you're going to be like, whatever, I texted them. I knew they probably wouldn't text me back, but there's somewhere deep in there, you're struggling a bit. There's some distress. The attachment style I have not addressed yet is disorganized. So disorganized would be, I'm circling back here. Disorganized would be when I can't figure it out. Like, I'm going to respond differently in different settings. It can feel chaotic. It can feel a little helpless, like I don't know what my strategy is here. So for a little, like an infant, it'll be, sometimes they'll cry and they'll get attention right away. Sometimes they'll shut down and be quiet, and then they will get the attention. So it's very confusing. So with the disorganized attachment and the texting, you would just go back and forth. You'd just be like, whatever, I don't care. And then you'd be like staring at your phone. Let's see, we can move on. So here's where we get to the good news. We are wounded in relationships, and we are healed in relationships. It's not destiny. However you attach, it's not destiny. You're not stuck there, which is the hope, right? That's what I want to really, if I could just convey one thing, it's that the ways that you've learned to attach or not attach are not destiny. There is so much healing that can take place in your relationship with God and in your community with spouses or partners. There's just so much room for healing. This is, I wrote down why insight is not enough. So the insight is really important, but it is not enough to heal. We need each other. We need God, and we need each other for that healing to take place. We can get all kinds of understanding. We can read books. We can really know our attachment style, but we're meant to heal in community. So just an example of that is that it isn't necessarily rational. Like we might, like with the illustration I did about my husband, I know he's not my dad. I know he's not my parent. So that's my rational side would say, you're being ridiculous. Completely ridiculous, because he's not your parent. My young side is emerging, and my young side doesn't know. My young side is like, I feel the same. I'm transported. It's a time machine. The healing happens in lived, embodied, and repeated experiences. So those would be with the people in our lives and our community. So those three things: lived, embodied, repeated experience. Those are the things that will heal and change us. I think we can move to the next one. Oh, here we are, almost. So I want to, as I'm talking about this stuff, I'm really aware that it can bring up a lot. Like you can start thinking about both yourself in relationship and yourself as a child and what you went through. You can also experience, if you're any parents in here, you can start experiencing guilt and shame around that. I know especially when I was studying all this stuff, I was like, oh my goodness, have I messed up my children for life? Which, maybe in some ways, but But it's not about that. It's not about blame. It's not about shame. It's not, people sometimes really struggle with, I don't want to blame my parents. I love my parents. And the point is they were doing the best they could with their story, with what their experience with attachment was. Yes, we can name harm and be grateful for them at the same time. Honor thy parents. We can do both. I just want to throw that out there. And the idea of enough is really important also. The idea that it's, as parents or as people engaging with the people in our life, we don't have to be perfect at it. We're not going to be perfect at it. It's enough. You can be, safe enough, consistent enough, different enough from your past experience to start providing that healing. One of the most powerful sources of healing is also really tough, and that is rupture and repair. So, such a theme throughout Scripture, rupture and repair. When you have a conflict with someone and you can work through it, you can both bring yourselves honestly and openly and find forgiveness. That strengthens that bond. Every time that happens, it strengthens the bond. It's like that, the illustration of working a muscle. There's little tears. As the muscle heals, it's stronger. So learning how to do rupture and repair well is a really powerful source of healing. How are we doing time-wise? I have my... Okay, what are we looking at? I have my clock here, but okay. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Rupture and repair. There's a beautiful, beautiful scripture about that. And I think of when Peter denied Christ 3 times. 3 times. Like, wow. I mean, I think of the pain that Christ experienced in that. A disciple and a dear, dear friend. But they worked through it, and they got on the other side, and Christ asked, Peter, do you love me? I mean, so, so, so powerful. Such a beautiful, powerful illustration of rupture and repair from Scripture. Okay, here we are. I'm matching my notes to the slides. So the attachment system and the life of faith. Safe haven, secure base. That's what God provides us. Safe haven, secure base. A psychologist named Lee Kirkpatrick studied faith and psychology and found that people relate to God in using the same attachment dimensions as human relationships. So the way that parents are our first kind of experience of God. So if I grow up with a father who is harsh, critical, angry, I have to work really hard to please, I'm going to assume that of God. And I'm going to relate to God in a way that's very fearful and always trying to please, which we want to do, of course. We want to please God. But that's our lens. The lens that we view God through is going to be that of like a harsh, critical parent. If we have a secure attachment, we will tend to have the kind of relationship with God that feels safe, feels secure, and is, we approach God, yes, with awe and respect, but with a sense of safety and a sense of going to God for comfort, knowing that God is a secure base. So it's, there's a mirror. It will mirror your relationship with God, will mirror your relationship to your earliest caregivers. And that's where the community comes in and friendships, family comes in to help heal that. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about how we move forward. So where are we? Oh, yep, here we go. Where do we go from here? Personally, just for our own personal relationship with God, I believe there's something so powerful about honest prayer. And sometimes that's lament. And I look to the Psalms over and over. And when you hear the psalmist lament and the breadth of emotions that they go through, the anger at God, the sadness, the disappointment, it's so raw, and we forget that sometimes. But I would really encourage you to approach the Psalms that way and look for the relationship. It's so honest. It just blows my mind sometimes. And the working through, and as the psalmist sits at God's feet and trusts and is moved then from that lament to trust and joy and feeling that closeness in the relationship. Not all Psalms, though, end that way. I did a paper on Psalm 88. It does not end with that happy, that like, oh, it's all good, it's all wrapped up in a bow. It doesn't end that way. So anyway, I just feel like the Psalms are really a great guide for us in our relationship with God. Let's see, the other thing I think personally that we can do is really pursue our story. Like maybe this will kind of ignite some interest in your own story, and just think about, revisit and think about what your story is and what your internalized messages are, about yourself. Gaining that insight is going to be really, really helpful in your healing. And approach it with a lot of compassion, a lot of grace and compassion, not in a judging spirit. But something that I often will talk about in therapy with clients is that the way that we talk to ourselves and the harshness we have for ourselves, we would never have with anyone else. So as we can learn to be more compassionate with our young self, and think about the kid that you were and the ways that you were hurt and all the compassion you would have for that kid. You'd have so much compassion, and learn to view yourself that way. It can be really, really powerful. Even, write yourself letters or journaling I so encourage journaling. It's a really important source of gaining insight and healing. Seeking help, asking each other for help, asking your family for help. Therapists can be helpful sometimes. But it's not weakness to ask for help. And I know you all know that. But sometimes we have to really remind ourselves of that it's a privilege to invite people into your life. When people ask for help, they are granting you a privilege. They're saying, I believe that you're there for me, and I trust you. Practice repair. I already talked about repair a little, but practicing repair in your relationships is going to be a really powerful way to heal. Restoring that connection. Again, through rupture, we learn that you can bear me. Like in my worst, you can bear me. And we can do this. We can work through this together. Be known. This is the risky part, vulnerability. Very risky. Letting yourself Be known for who you really are. Let someone see the interior, not this like managed persona that we all do. And in certain settings you have to. But can you risk? Which is, again, a huge privilege for the people in your life. But what I want to say here that's really important is I'll say it this way, if I'm going to ask you to risk, if I'm going to ask you to step out on that ice, you need to know that ice is going to hold. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be like, I want you to tell me your deepest insecurity, and then I let you down. That's not fair. What community is providing that safety and security so that you can risk. So both sides of those are so important. Creating predictable environments. So as a community, consistency, predictability, because so many of us grew up without predictability, and that is it just creates so much distress and anxiety in us when things are unpredictable. So providing that for each other is another path towards healing. Not over predictable, but just, our responses being predictable, that we'll be there for each other being predictable. That's going to bring you closer and provide that safety and security that we all need. Model repair. So I feel like I've talked about rupture repair a lot, but modeling that. So this, for leaders, for parents, for all of us to model that so the people in our lives learn that. Again, I feel like I can't emphasize the rupture and repair enough. It's just so huge. There's so much more, but I feel like this might be a really good time for some reflection. So we can pull up, perfect. Yeah, so I have these questions, and around the table, you can just pick one, like read them over and pick one, or if you have time for a couple, then that'd be great too. Then we will do some Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. So I'm going to go join this table for a minute.